Today is Saturday, November 16th, 2019. Welcome to the Survivor Fans Podcast. I'm Joanne.
And I'm Stacy.
And this is the listener feedback show for week 8 of Island of the Idols.
There's no way around it. This is going to be a heavy show. It's a heavy topic, and a lot of people had a response to what happened in the big double episode, and a lot of us are still processing it.
I don't feel like I've completely... I wanted to rewatch it. I've not been able to. It just part of me doesn't want to either.
Well, that's certainly. Yep.
And we're reading and dealing with everything coming in, so we're in it anyway. But I still don't feel like I've taken enough time to completely do my own process.
No, but I can say, having worked through, how many folks do we have? 36?
36.
Having worked through these, that I'm starting to see different things that I hadn't seen before.
Which is always the benefit of the listener feedback show.
Right, the broad spectrum that we have, and it gives us multiple lenses to view what's going on. And I do believe that good things can come from bad things, but you have to put the work in first.
True.
And I feel like this is part of that work, is going through and getting to hear it from other people's perspectives and how they viewed the incidents and what we were shown in those 2 episodes. And I think that's one of the things that came around to me even more of relevance, is that people are going to talk about the edit, and is it a service or disservice? What's going on there? Well, and we're always conscious of the edit because we view things through that lens, but there's people bringing up some good points there from that perspective. Nothing's changed in terms of my perspective on who made some really awful decisions that we got to see in the course of those 2 episodes. But just being able to see it in a broader spectrum, I think, is super valuable.
Well, and for myself, I of course haven't listened to all the audios, but I did hear a few things, and I thought, oh, that really makes me stop and think about myself as well, because I am a touchy-feely person. I mean, I'm a massage therapist for over 30 years now, so that's just me. And I thought, and I feel like I can feel when someone's uncomfortable and adjust, but I thought, but I should also stay more aware. You know, some of the things people said, I thought, oh, okay, I do need to stay aware. Male, female, doesn't matter. Touch is still touch. So,
yep.
Anyway, I appreciate that, to be able to look within myself as well, which I think is why it affected so many people and made them go so reflective.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot to be uncomfortable about, and then there's sharing that and helping other people see it, just like you said. So we got a lot to get into. Do we need to say anything else up front?
I don't think so. We'll cover the JSFL stuff at the end.
More of the game stuff.
There's a few things that are relevant in JSFL this week, so we'll get to that at the very end.
All right, without further ado, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to kick it off with Ann this week.
Hi, it's Ann in San Diego. Originally, I was really excited about the double episode tonight, but these episodes really disturbed me. First of all, I know it is a little confusing for some people, but I don't believe Kelly was saying that Dan touched her in a sexual way. She was saying that he was touching her after she asked him not to. Now, typically, your face and your back could be very intimate and is usually reserved for someone you know really well and that you know does not mind and it is appropriate to the situation. For example, your friend who is a known hugger is crying. Then putting a hand on her back for a brief time is most likely okay. But unless I know the person is open to it, I always ask, would you like a hug? And briefly touch their back to see if they are receptive before encroaching on their space even more with a hug. It really is not a lot of extra work to do. So back to Kelly. It is not in question if he touched her face, hair, back, and attempted to touch her more times, but she recoiled away from Dan in time. We saw clips of that, and we saw multiple times of Kelly telling him first nicely and then adamantly, don't touch my hair, and him saying, I just wanted to see if there was sand in it. It doesn't matter what you want, Dan. She already told you no touching at all. Sometimes predator types use this type of behavior to desensitize you so that you keep allowing them access to you, even though you have a gut level feeling that there is something off about them. They get you to doubt yourself. This is why I never force my son to give people hugs if he doesn't want to. People need to feel they have complete autonomy over what happens to their body and trust their gut, adults and children. It doesn't help that they are forced to walk around in their underwear and that they are stuck on an island with no way to get away from the situation except by quitting or insisting on getting higher authorities involved. This must make them feel extra vulnerable. At least if you're getting harassed at work, you can go home and you have a chance to think or talk things through and get your courage up to address it. Kelly doesn't have that chance. Dan is there lurking all the time. I find it highly suspicious that Dan changed his behavior when Janet was there. This indicates to me that he is capable of modifying his behavior. If he had an uncontrollable impulse, then it would have no effect if Janet was there. To me, this indicates that Dan understands it is inappropriate and is intentionally looking for opportunities to get by with it. Now, I'm conflicted by Missy and Elizabeth's actions. I get that they were desperate, but I think it is really wrong to use something so serious to get a vote to go your way. I would feel a little better if they were exaggerating their response to help vote out Dan, because there would at least be some justice for Kelly to that plan. But to use it to vote out the recipient of the unwanted touching seems much worse. I think Kelly might have been voted out anyway due to her scheme last week, and they should have used that. They really didn't need to take such a dark path. Even though they could, and it was effective, it doesn't make it right. Those are my thoughts. Thanks for giving us a forum to discuss this. Thanks, Joanne and Stacy, for all that you do.
Thank you, Ann.
I agree with all of that. I thought very well said, Ann. That reflects a lot of my very own feelings. And the only thing is, Missy and Elizabeth weren't in the tribal council last week, were they? Where Kelly gave Dean the idol and voted out Jack.
No, but everybody knows that Jack's gone.
Yeah.
And that happened. They didn't show it. Didn't show the...
Well, my point was being they may not have known that her actions, because the rest of the people didn't know it either, per se, until Nora said something. But they might have shared it. Probably did. They probably told someone.
Next up, we got a call from Rebecca.
Hey, guys. This is Rebecca calling from Northern California. Number one, Kelly. I am confused about her overall honesty in the game. Where was the gameplay? And where was it genuine? As I found her communication with others to be completely disingenuous time after time. When cornered, she had a tendency to break down and cry. Example, when she came back from Island of the Idol, she wept, said she didn't have an idol. When Nora called her out on the Dean play, Kelly, can you stop saying my name? Okay, Kelly. She took Jamal and Janet aside and cried to them and swore up and down she was not involved. She totally played them. So when we see her then crying to Janet about Dan, is it gameplay or is it authentic? Is she playing Janet? And I feel like a terrible person for even questioning her motives when it comes to the subject of someone being accused of being inappropriate with a woman. But her earlier behavior just left me confused. But should it? We should take people at their word. Always, shouldn't we? Even in Survivor. So we watch Kelly play Missy into lulling her to thinking she's safe by talking about Dan again. They're totally bonding. Who, hands down, no pun, is a touchy-feely, creepy guy. But I was left with how much is authentic and how much was real. And again, I felt terrible for feeling like that. She says point blank in one of her confessionals she's going after Missy, but letting people think it's Dan because it's a good play for her. And it made me feel icky and confused because I always want to believe women, and to have a question in my mind made me feel like I was not standing up for all women, and that was not a good feeling. There's been a lot of chatter about this week about how Missy and Elizabeth were callous to let people think they were more affected by Dan to better their game, but after several viewings I thought it was a much softer play than that. The idea was brought to them and they gave the yeah, sure, but they were already locked and loaded on Kelly. The Dan and elimination was brought up by Jamal, who ran it by Nora, and then they brought it to Janet, who then tried to get the others on board. In many ways, this was a sad episode, as it truly reflected society and how women who bring up men acting inappropriately are often not believed, and the ones who stand up for them are then vilified. And the ones acting inappropriately act as if they don't think they did anything wrong. I watched this episode 3 times, and I still don't completely understand all the dynamics. I do think, though, from the moment Kelly said on day 1 that she was uncomfortable, something should have been said to Dan, and not on day 20 whatever. But she went home with 2 idols, which was both sad and awesome, and she was a cutthroat player, and I would have been interested to see where she went in the game. I feel bad for Kelly, and at the same time I feel bad for Creepy Dan because it's on TV, and I feel bad for the sweet Mama Janet. This was quite an episode. It gave me a lot of feelings. I was sad to see Jamal go. He was a true gentleman. Guys, this was a heavy episode, and I was left really not knowing in a lot of ways what to think. Till next week, thank you all for what you do, and I am very, very interested to hear what other people have to say. Thanks, guys. Bye. Hey, it's Rebecca with one last thing to add. This morning I went back and watched that episode again for the 4th time, and now I just feel manipulated by the Survivor editors because I feel like they confuse the issue a lot with the edit, and now I feel played by Survivor. Still upset, still really feel for all the people involved, especially Kelly. That's all. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Very well said. All of it. Because that is how I felt right after. It was very difficult. I mean, yes, I'd been traveling and it was in the middle of the night, the time zone I was in when we were in, all of that confusion. But I really felt like it would have been, no matter how I was feeling, it would have been a difficult podcast to do within a short period of time after watching it. I just didn't feel like we had any time to process at all, and I was trying not to be really, really angry, come across really angry, but I felt angry. Mm-hmm. So I want to, and I also, it's important to me as a person not to be judgmental, even though I felt judgmental. Mm-hmm. So that's a dilemma for me as well. So I really felt like we didn't have a lot of time to process before just doing the recording. But it was very clear to me that Dan's in the wrong, period. Just because he was asked not to do it and he chose to.
I didn't have any problem being judgmental of Missy and Elizabeth, especially when I saw how enthusiastically they embraced the concept of using this issue with Dan's inappropriate touching to achieve a move in the context of the game, and Elizabeth just being giddy at the thought of executing on that plan. Mm-hmm. So for me, nothing changed, and that's why I didn't think it was maybe necessarily as soft as Rebecca, but I'm right there with you in that there's a lot to unpack here.
Totally.
Thanks again, Rebecca. Next up, we've got an email from Barbara in Long Island.
Hi, Joanne and Stacy. Well, this was, for me, the most uncomfortable episode of Survivor all season.
Yep.
As a woman around Janet's age, my heart broke for her. She made the mistake of forgetting what game she was playing. This is Survivor. People lie, cheat, betray, and connive their way to the $1 million prize. But the girls lying and conniving about an issue that greatly upset Kelly, then urging Janet to step up for them, is a new low. Aaron accusing Janet of playing the victim card was almost as nauseating as Dan's arrogance at Tribal, despite having been warned by production. Yes, Aaron, your mother is a woman, and some of your best friends are probably women, but you are blind to a certain cultural truths. As a white woman, I've never been unfairly treated by police, but that doesn't mean I don't recognize what people of color have experienced. Wise up, dude. That dude was for you, Joanne. Thank you.
Barbara.
I'm sure Janet will soon be voted out. Just the same, I made her my new USB.
There you go.
If Aaron muscles his way into winning the game, I'll be done with Survivor. Not sorry.
Oh.
All right, thanks, Barbara. Though I hope you don't let go of Survivor. We'll all get past this.
Next up, we got a call from Christiana.
Hi, Stacy. Hi, Joanne. Welcome back. This is Christiana from Boston. Oh, boy. So I have been all over the map with my thoughts about this episode. When I first watched it, I thought one thing. Then after thinking about it, I totally changed my mind. Then after listening to the recap, I thought a different thing. But basically what I've come down to is I think that the way the episode was edited and produced seemed like the first third of the episode was telling one story, and then the last 2/3 told a different story. The first third seemed to be really about the game. Even Kelly said, I don't like Dan. Dan makes me uncomfortable, but I still want to vote Missy. Missy's the bigger threat. And then somewhere along the line, that changed, we didn't see all of that in terms of the decision to make the moral vote versus the game vote. I agree with you, Stacey, that I think Missy thought the conversation with Kelly on the beach right after the merch feast was genuine, and then when Lauren told her, hey, she's gunning for you, I think Missy was really rattled by that, because if she thought that Kelly could make that connection within 2 hours but really wanted her out, then Missy felt like she had to get Kelly out. So that's all fine. If Kelly's the biggest threat and you want to vote her out, that's a game decision. Post-tribal, things start to turn, and the narrative starts to turn in the show and how it's edited, of that Missy and Elizabeth primarily totally weaponized those fears and what Janet said, and then were lying to Janet, but they thought that Janet was lying to them. And from there, they really dig themselves into a hole. And I think the simple thing that could have changed for them, for especially Elizabeth, is when they're talking at night outside the shelter, and Janet asks her, hey, did you say that about Dan when we were up on the hill? And Elizabeth finally says, yeah, I did. And she should have just said, yeah, I did. I thought you were lying to me because I thought Missy was the vote. This wasn't personal. Kelly was a huge threat. I'm sorry. And I think that really could have made everything better, but instead it just got worse. And it's hard for me because I do think Missy and Elizabeth and all the old Lyro playing a really strong game. They've done a lot with a little, but I don't know if socially and jury-wise they can come back from this. Missy, Elizabeth, Lauren, and Aaron all issued apologies on social media the night the episode aired, and it seems like they didn't know the extent of Kelly's discomfort. I mean, they could just be saying that, but at this point, why would they be lying? It's all already out there. They all look pretty bad, particularly Elizabeth. So yeah, I don't know. I still have mixed feelings about it, but I really want to hear what everyone else has to say, because there's so many different angles you could look at this. All right, thanks. Have a good week, everyone.
Thanks, Christiana. I believe those releases, especially from Elizabeth and Missy, came in the next day after things have been blowing up pretty bad on them.
I didn't see videos of anybody but I think Aaron.
Yeah, that was the only one that was in a video. He did a 2-part video apology. And I'll include a link that has that if anybody wants to go check it out.
Well,
more people are going to talk about the apologies as we go through here, too, because there's some different takes on that.
Yeah.
Sorry, was there something else you want to say?
No, I was just going to say some of the thank yous that I read from Missy and Elizabeth. I'm not saying they didn't genuinely feel badly about it, but that some of the wording felt scripted. You know, like somebody had
You said
approved
thank
it.
yous, but you meant the apologies that they wrote, right?
Oh.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's what you were referring to. Their apologies,
yes.
their written apologies.
I didn't know I said that. So
that's okay.
Okay. That is what I meant, however, is that some of it felt scripted, like somebody had said, okay, we need to approve whatever you say. Now, that's just my own conjecture there, so there's no proof of that, but that was a thought that went through my mind with, it felt a little scripted.
Thanks, Christiana. Next up, we got an email from Nicola in Lexington, Kentucky. Hello, Survivor family. Well, I was going to call in feedback, but I find my voice is failing me. I watched live, and I just got halfway through my second watch, but I had to turn it off. It just makes me feel very yucky. While the conversation's very relevant to long overdue shifts in society, it's not the reason I watch Survivor. Jackson certainly won't be watching these episodes for a couple of years, but eventually we will watch and discuss moral character and what people will or will not do for money. Dan has come off as a smarmy bugger since the start of the season, and his silence on social media, etc. is overwhelming. I read all the statements from everyone but Lauren. I'm not sure if she made one. She did. They all seemed a bit coached, but genuine. As someone pointed out, they all have had months to discuss this and process, and I'm sure CBS provided therapists. It's going to take us a little while, and we didn't even experience it firsthand. Excellent
True.
point.
Well said.
It's late here in the bluegrass, and we have basketball tomorrow, so I'll stop there. I really don't know what else to say, except I was so disappointed in Missy, Elizabeth, and Lauren's behavior. Looking forward to hearing everyone's feedback. Talk next week when we hopefully get a more traditional episode. Joanne, I'm glad you had a great visit with your family. Welcome back. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nicola. Next up, we got a call from Krystle.
Hi, Joanne and Stacy. This is Krystle from Pasadena. I didn't get to call in last week, but I'm happy I got the chance to this week. And Joanne, it's great to hear your voice back on the podcast again. All that being said, this episode of Survivor was great in so many ways, mostly for reasons that are beyond the Survivor game. I feel like I'm glad that they dedicated 2 hours to it because I do think that the time was important. However, looking back on this episode, I feel like I was pulled away from the actual game of Survivor a bit and more kind of faced with the real life issues because this episode was so much bigger than the game of Survivor. And so I didn't get that usual excitement, happy feeling while watching it, mostly because it took me out of the game a bit, if that makes sense. But I really didn't like the way that Missy and Elizabeth handled the whole situation. I feel like Janet was trying to do the right thing, and my heart hurt for her because I totally understand how she ended up in the dilemma that she did. And I just felt bad that Missy and Elizabeth used that information, and I feel like I don't know if they really exaggerated what Dan was doing or they just didn't want to say it to his face. I just felt really uncomfortable seeing them lie about that and seeing them act like they never said anything or like nothing's wrong. And it just really made me, I think, uncomfortable is the biggest word I can use for that. But I don't know really where the show is going to go from here for this season, but I am interested in finding out. I'm sad that Kelly and Jamal went, and there are still players in the game that I am rooting for, though. Like, I really like Elaine and the way she handles herself, and Tommy. But from this, I am very curious to see where we go from here. I guess that's really all I have to say for this week, and thank you for all you do, and I hope everyone has a great week. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, Krystle. Yeah, I gotta agree. There's a great big question mark with what the future holds here. Next up, we got an email from Nathan in Portsmouth, Virginia.
Hello, everyone. I should start by saying that I did not listen to the recap show this week. It's the first time I have not listened to the recap since I discovered the podcast years ago. The same will go for the listener feedback this week. I just don't have it in me. I was having a rough time dealing with some renewed emotions from my loss earlier this year, but I thought Survivor will give me a break. It's a 2-hour episode. Well, that did not turn out well.
No.
The whole thing was just sad. I hope everyone else will give their thoughts, and perhaps it can bring some meaningful dialogue. I'm always grateful for how polite and thoughtful all the listeners are with their feedback, but I'm just not able to listen this week. I'll be back next week, assuming it's not another Dark Cloud episode. Hang in there, everyone. Season 40 is coming. All right. Thanks, Nathan. We hope you feel better soon.
Next up, we got a call from Sandi.
Hi guys, this is Sandi from Atlanta. I'm very disappointed in the whole Survivor show. I'm very disappointed in Missy and Elizabeth for pushing something that has such huge ramifications. I'm disappointed in Survivor for dragging me along with this into the point where I believed it. I was 100% behind Janet. Why wouldn't you? I mean, obviously they're not gonna because Nora is still there, But I don't know. I thank you, though, because now I will not have to stay up and watch the reunion show. I've seen this. I've read about it. I've talked about it. I'm just sad about the whole thing. And I just wish it had been done a different way. But the way that they were playing the game really could have impacted his life forever, regardless of whether it's true or not. Regardless, that's the hard part. You just can, everything can be so damaged in this day and time. All right, stepping down. You know one thing about Elizabeth? When you talk to her, she does that eye thing where she looks like she is just hearing how to play Survivor for the first time and that she is just a baby and you need to just tow her right along. Great poker face. Did notice that every time the boat came to the island to take somebody to the Island of the Idols, Jamal really was hoping he could go. He has been dying to go. How did he get the clue and not unfold the whole part? And what would he have done? That's my next question. I did want to tell you that I picked Nora for my USB. I'm not worried about my 5 points at this point of this JSFL season. So I thought I'd just see how that would work out. All right, guys, have a great week. And again, thanks, Survivor, for the extra hour of sleep I'm going to get.
Okay, so Sandy's not going to tune in for the reunion show. And it actually explicitly said on the note for him not to unwrap it and finish reading it. That's why. Thanks, Sandy. Next up, we got an email from Scott in Connecticut. Dear Joanne and Stacy, I'm finding this podcast is the only thing I'm enjoying about this season. I'm probably in the minority, but I'm just not interested in tribal council being used for social awareness week after week. However, I think the Dan issue had to be addressed. My issue is that I think I heard Stacy mention something about a new casting director, and my fear is that they're going to make an effort in casting more controversial players. Do you really want viewer discretion warnings every week? Certainly not.
No.
Stacy, your take on Janet not playing the game with Rob and Sandra was right on. She probably wishes that she had the advantage now. How quickly things change. Thank you guys for everything you do, and to all the regulars who send in your feedback. This is only my second one. By the way, sorry for the bad attitude. I just changed my USB to Kelly last week. Take care. All right, thanks, Scott. Yeah, I feel a little doofy after saying that too. We had such an amazing pre-merge, and in the show notes for not this last one, but the one before, I was saying, hey, editing and casting really have done a great job. And now we uncover all this stuff, and I realize, wow, how wrong could I have been that we did not get the quality cast that I thought was there based on the pre-merge game. Everything changed at the merge. Thanks again, Scott. Next up, we have a call from Eliza.
Hi, this is Eliza from Lexington, Kentucky. There's something that I've been thinking the entire season is like how Survivor's trying to get into this social consciousness conversation, and I can kind of appreciate it because I understand you want to be historically and socially relevant as a TV show, bring important conversations to light, enlighten viewers about other cultures and belief systems. They keep trying really hard to have these conversations in the show, but it's coming up very awkwardly, and I'm not sure if it's because the people that are producing it don't exactly understand the conversations or why it's being edited this way. There's ways to do it to get a good point across, and the people that are having those conversations are extremely intelligent and well-spoken, so I don't think it's them, and I'm not really sure where the disconnect is. Other than maybe people who are producing reality TV shows don't have a good social conscience, and that's the only thing that I can think. I was really disturbed by the episode this evening. We've had this semi-dialogue going on throughout the season about Dan and how disgusting he is. So we've all been prepared emotionally for something like this to happen. But then I'm not really sure what happened, because to me, in my eyes, it seems like Kelly really did have an issue from go, from day one that she talked to Dan about, and there was an issue that the producers did not take to heart and did not deal with appropriately or in a timely manner. And then all of these women got together and they started complaining, and then they dealt with it. And I was, okay, so we have to wait until 4 or 5 women complain about something before something's done. But then to come to find out that some of these women were just playing the game and associating themselves with this discussion in order to be on the same side as people is reprehensible. And then for Janet to come out looking like she was playing the victim card and turning this awful dialogue on Dan, and I think Jeff maybe cleared the air by the end of the episode and explained everything that happened the correct way, but not really sure if they completely understand what happened. And the way that the show is edited, I'm not really sure if a lot of viewers are going to completely understand what happened. I'm not even really sure if I understand what happened. I'm very concerned for Dan that maybe his reputation is on the line because Survivor was trying to submit some type of social dialogue and they used him to do it. I feel like he was used to have a conversation, and it's very disconcerting, and I understand like that conversation is very important, and I do think that Kelly was really disturbed by his behavior, and none of it was handled appropriately. This really upsets me about the show. As much as I want to be on it and I want to continue to watch it, if they continue to use this platform to have these conversations, they need to bring people in that are better suited to edit and have these conversations. And I'm very interested to see how everybody else took it, because I am so confused about what happened, and maybe I'm taking it the wrong way. Thank you so much for having this podcast so that I can listen to it and hear everybody else's take on it. Have a great day. Bye.
Thanks, Eliza. I think there's definitely some people who share your perspective on this.
Absolutely. And, may continue for some time to reevaluate their thoughts and feelings.
Next up, we got an email from Patrick in Missouri.
Hey guys, during and after this episode, I have so many emotions going on. I feel this episode crossed the line from great gameplay to possibly causing personal damage to Dan, and also possibly hurting women victims in real life. I say that because in real life, when there's a situation of harassment, a lot of times people wonder if it actually happened, and that's sad. But this episode showed how that type of situation may be seen differently by different people. After telling Janet how safe they felt now, but then joking about Dan's touching, I lost all respect for Elizabeth and Missy. I know I'm all over the place, but I'm mad. I wish Janet would tell those women off. They used and lied to a good lady, and this is not a Survivor lie. This was a real life lie. I wish Janet could win. By the way, glad you're back, Joanne. All right, thanks, Patrick. Yeah, that's true. That's why I was saying I found myself being angry and trying not to be judgmental, because I hadn't had time to process my emotions. And a lot of people, I'm not bringing up certain points that I'm thinking as each of you are speaking, because I know that someone else is going to discuss it further later on. Okay, next up, we have a call from Kim and Cameron.
Hey, Joanna, Stacy, and Survivor fans. This is Kim and Cameron together this week.
Hello.
Yep, we're going to try to talk not just about Dan, of course, but you know what? Let's face it. The majority of the episode was just about him. And I think we're both totally agreeing with each other that this might be the most uncomfortable episode of Survivor, aside from Survivor Thailand, that we've ever seen.
First thing, I don't see how Kelly didn't see that train wreck coming.
When Nora started talking.
Yeah, and like you said, Stacy, it's funny how Nora just keeps going on. Just Kelly. I mean, it's Nora. Know who you're working with now. We're back into the individual immunity season, of course, and I think it's just going to be a load of more stand still, see how long you can hang in their competitions. The first one went kind of fast, though. I kind of expected it to go a lot longer. longer. I mean, David versus Goliath, that Alec Christian one went for like 7 hours, I think.
I just think everyone should look out for Aaron. He looked really strong in both challenges.
He's going places.
If we were to end up at the end, it would depend on who he was with, but I think he would have a chance of winning, and he could go on an immunity run.
That's right.
So I noticed they've been showing flashbacks at Island of Idols. For example, Yule. Oh, I really loved Yule. I wonder why they're doing that.
Me too. I mean, I wonder if he'll ever come back.
I don't know.
I don't know either. Into the Dan stuff. First thing I want to say was Janet in the second half of the episode. I thought she had a right to talk to Dan. Of course. What I'm just still unsure how comfortable Missy and Elizabeth were with it, and if they weren't comfortable with it, I think Janet should take some blame for that, for kind of exposing it. But at the same time, again, it's kind of hard to know exactly what's happening. But one thing I will say, I mean, we remember just a few seasons ago, remember what Jeff Varner did to Zeke? I mean, that was just one of the most awkward moments ever, and I don't want something like that to ever happen again. But we might be getting into that. You don't know.
It seemed to me like the video that we saw was pretty clear about what happened. I think Missy and Elizabeth were the manipulative ones, and maybe Janet, who knows, she's being kind of painted as a hero. It seemed that was genuine, and then the whole bringing Missy and Elizabeth out to talk with Dan, I think she was trying to maybe work on her game position, as well as kind of say, wait a minute, what's really going on? Were you really bothered by what happens? And I just want to say that it's easy for me, from the distance of a greater age and past experiences, to say, oh, that person should just say, don't do that if someone is doing something that makes them uncomfortable. But I think that's harder for most younger people.
And just from, my younger perspective, I'm sure times will change. Things will get better in that sort. And just, we saw how Dan behaved at Tribal Council. Stacey, you mentioned something, he seemed surprised. I don't think he seemed surprised. I really think he was just still really stunned, because he'd already been confronted by production, and clearly it just really... he was either afraid or upset or something.
I feel like if he did it, the producers should come down on him. If he didn't, then they should let it drop. It's kind of, Dan is in a no-win spot no matter what the truth is. And I know this whole truth is perception. Well, perceptions can be different, but I don't think truth is necessarily something that changes.
Joanne and Stacey, thank you guys so much. Joanne, glad you are back. Anything else, Kim?
Nope, glad to have Joanne back myself, and always love hearing everybody's voices, and bye.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Kim and Cameron. Next up, we got an email. We got an email from Ian in Woodland Hills, California. Hi, Joanne and Stacey and fellow Survivor fans. So many thoughts. In general, the whole episode made me feel uncomfortable. I'm not sure what the best way to handle the Dan situation would have been, but I definitely thought it needed to be addressed. I had been a real fan of Missy, but the way she and Elizabeth treated Janet was disgusting. I'm definitely Team Janet now. While she has an outside chance of winning, I do hope she gets the SIA Award, Medal of Honor, or some acknowledgement for her moral compass. I understand that this is a game and people are lying, cheating, and backstabbing, etc., but to use this strategy was a new low. There were so many thoughts going on in my head as I watched the episode, like does gender play a role in how I feel? Is nothing off limits in terms of gameplay? While I didn't enjoy the episode because of how it made me feel, it is the reason why I'm a huge Survivor fan. This social experiment really makes you question normal societal behavior. I can't wait until the reunion show when Kelly's able to address Dan, Missy, and Elizabeth. Thanks for reading my email, and I look forward to what others have to say. Thank you, Ian.
Do you think Dan will actually go to the reunion show?
The fact that there's nothing from him this week suggests something's up. I don't have anything. I don't have anything that I'm going on but that. It's just that there's complete silence. I read that I think his Twitter's locked up right now. So that's something else is going on. I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't attend. I don't know. I don't have anything else to say than that. Something's up. This isn't over, unfortunately. Next up, we got a call from Shea.
Hey guys, this is Shea. I'm kind of blown away by this whole episode. I guess I could talk about how arrogant it was for Kelly to ask Lauren if she was okay or not and walk out with 2 idols when she should have just decided for herself if she was okay or not and play one of those idols. But what I really have on my mind is the whole Dan thing, and I'm sure that's the case for a lot of people. And so many things bother me
I'm absolutely appalled at Elizabeth's behavior and Missy's as well. I mean, I've been seeing what Dan's doing. As a matter of fact, at the merge meal, you can see Dan laying on the ground, and he just reaches up and grabs someone's bare leg around their calf with no permission whatsoever. I've been noticing it, so I know that it's happening, but still, for someone to just fall into line behind a couple of other women and claim she's scared and worried and upset too, and put someone's name out there for something like this, and it just be about gameplay is beyond wrong, in my opinion. Beyond wrong. And to pull Janet into such an emotional place and have her turn against someone she cares about, Dan, and then set her up like she's the bad guy. And when Janet called them out and had a talk with them right in front of Dan, you could tell Elizabeth didn't have much to say. She didn't know what to say except to admit what she had done. But the moment Janet walked off, then she started running her mouth again to Dan. The other thing that upset me is how defensive Dan got. I get that I guess he should be, but I felt like he should have been more concerned about whether there was some truth to it or not, and he just didn't realize it. And I feel like the producers should have shown him some footage that he could kind of look to and understand what it is that he's actually doing wrong, because there is footage. And I feel like if they're going to take the time to shut down the show and talk to everybody, then they could have gone a step further and done that, shown him the footage. It's just, I don't know. And then Jamal, I loved what he said to Aaron when Aaron suggested that it couldn't possibly be true because he didn't know about it. Because I personally have been violated multiple times in my life between the ages of 7 and 12 by people who should have cared about me, and my own mother didn't know about it because I didn't tell anybody. You know, and for him to just assume that he would know is just beyond arrogant. Anyway, I really, really love how you've handled the episode and everything that both of you had to say. I thought it was really classy, and I'm so glad that this podcast is an addition to a show that I love. So I appreciate everything you do and can't wait to hear what everybody else has to say.
Thanks, Shea. We appreciate you sharing some difficult portions of your life there to help make that point so clear.
Yeah, I've had abuse issues as well, and so I do. Again, that's part of my response and anger, because I'd said to Stacy, well, this is probably what I would have said and done, and Stacy said, and you would be the one escorted off the show, and I'm thinking, yeah, well, that probably would have been my response, was to, physically react harshly, and but that's a choice too. So, okay, next up we have Julie from Iowa. Hello, Joanne and Stacy and all of our Survivor friends. Welcome back, Joanne. We've missed you. Thank you very much, Julie. I did get one vote-off point Wednesday night for Jamal and 4 safe points, but it was really hard watching that episode. I'm not a crier, but I cried with Janet. As someone who experienced a worse than Handsy Dan brother-in-law from the age of 12 on up, I felt Kelly's pain and was so happy that Janet believed what was happening and tried to do something about it. What I don't understand is why CBS...
This is a huge question right here.
I realize that not everything that we see is reality, and I pray and hope that they were not allowing this for ratings. We've heard Handsy Dan from many of our superfans on the podcast from episode 2 on, and CBS has made a point to show snippets of what looks like inappropriate touching in several of the episodes. Was it or wasn't it? If it was not the case for the other girls, and they have done damage to Dan and his family or his business by using this as gameplay, I hope Missy and Elizabeth are out of the game very soon. I have had Janet as my USB since the beginning of the season and decided to keep her as my 24-point USB just because I'm so proud of her. I selected her because she was the older woman and have enjoyed watching her all season, and I'm still hoping she wins. Thanks for everything you do, and I can't wait to hear feedback from everyone. All right, thanks, Julie, and thanks for sharing. Up next, we have a call from Sophie.
Hi, Survivor fans. Hi, Joanne and Stacy. I haven't called in for a few weeks, but your comments and reviews have been really great. It It was just nice to hear familiar voices. October was such a stressful month. I know 8 people who passed away in October, and 4 were extremely close to me. 2 are my age, and 1 of cancer, 1 just didn't wake up, so we're not too sure still what happened to him. And in the last 2 days, I've been in a hospice with my friend whose mum's slowly passing away. So it's just been a really tough month, actually. But Survivor's been fun until it starts being all about the life lessons, and I'm sick of it. I really just want to see the game and hear the playing, and I don't want to be taught things. And I mean, they already spoke to Dan. I just thought the last tribal council was just exhausting, and I too was saying enough already, just, move on. Everything just seems so drawn out, especially if they spoke to each individual player by themselves, then as a group, and that's all they're talking about. Is it weird that I actually felt a little bit sorry for Dan? I mean, yeah, it's a topic that should be discussed, and I think he knows now that it's really been brought to his attention, but I just wanted more Survivor. The last episode of the 2 just sort of ruined my joy. But the first episode was really, really good. We really enjoyed watching that, and I got my first point, my vote out. I got Kelly. I too also had Aaron going home, but no, it didn't happen. And Caleb, my son, he got a vote out point for Jamal, but his USB got voted out last week. Jack, he was upset, so he went to school early, and my daughter Layla, she's 10, she had to decide quickly for him and make all the picks, so she chose Janet as her new USB winner, and I love her. I'm so glad that she stuck up for herself, and she called Elizabeth out. I thought it was disgusting behavior on Elizabeth, just so openly lying. I know it's a game, but I'm sort of sick of all the lying and sort of manipulation, and I'm glad that Janet did stick up for herself, and she didn't go to bed until it was sorted out. Elizabeth, if you're listening to this, you should be ashamed of yourself. Maybe you came on to Survivor to sell your new book that's out about your Olympic life, but I won't be buying it. I just thought your behavior, Elizabeth, was just really over the top and cruel. You and Missy. So sorry if I'm sort of moody. I haven't really slept, and it's been a bad month, but things will get better, and Survivor is a good way to get together with my family. So thanks for everything you do, guys, and I still love the show. Bye.
Thanks, Sophie. Sorry you're having such a hard time there.
Sorry for your losses.
Next up, we got a call from Caleb-n-Leala.
Hello, this is Caleb
and Layla,
and we liked the last episode, but at the end of it started to get boring, and I didn't like how they kept going on and on
about how he was being really touchy with the girls, and it just got annoying.
Did you like the merge feast or any of the challenges?
I like the challenges when they had to hold onto the rope behind their back, and who would fall into the water.
That was funny.
What about the squatting one? Do you think you could do that?
No, I couldn't do that.
That was harder.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else you want to say?
I'm surprised that Kelly went home with 2 idols in her pocket and find them, and she didn't even play it when she really could have.
How did you guys feel when Janet was crying, saying that she might go home?
I was sad, but it was also really cool seeing her that she got an idol.
She found an idol. Yeah. Do you guys want to be on Survivor one day?
Yes.
Nah.
No? Oh, come on. Okay. Layla, we're going to start your training then.
Yes.
Okay. See you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Caleb. Thanks, Layla. Next up, we got an email from Paul in Northern Virginia. Hi, Joanne and Stacy. Firstly, thank you all for all you do to make a great experience like viewing Survivor even better for so long. I've listened to y'all for about 120 years. Well, okay.
That's about how old I feel sometimes.
More like 15, but I get what you're saying. It seems like this is my first time commenting. 2 very disturbing episodes. I've been disturbed by Dan's inappropriate touching and caressing since episode 1. Were any of the singular actions we were privy to, were any of those actions done to my daughter, I'd go through the roof, not the least of which is Dan's phony pearl clutching when exposed. When Missy and Elizabeth later said Dan's inappropriate actions didn't bother them, that wasn't their talk to one another before they hatched their scheme, particularly Missy's deadpan, I'm not an object words, and, well, he didn't touch me last night, so that's good. That is to say, she was clearly disturbed by it. Whether she's lying to her cohorts, the producers, and herself is only for her to know.
Good point.
And seeing Dan see that the first tribal Every time Kelly spoke, I read his facial and physical expressions to be, "Don't do it, don't say it," sneers at Kelly. And his comments as her torch was put out, the look in his eyes as well, said a lot. After 3 decades reading people in the military in human intelligence business, he exposed himself very loudly there, guilty. That, coupled with his own words to Janet as she confronted Missy and Liz with him nearby, were, "I think it's better left alone." I'd translate to, "Yes, I know, I did it, but let's keep sweeping it away." He was sweating bullets. Here's some other observations. Smug Aaron was so full of himself at Tribal with, "Well, I didn't know, and the world revolves around me, so Janet's just crying poor, pitiful me, and by the way, my mother and sisters are women." Liz is a horrible actor, just terrible, giving herself away with obvious eye and facial expressions, and worse, she doesn't seem to be able to read what's obvious in others' actions and words because her own are so topsy-turvy. Tommy in his hat was a dead giveaway for Vincent Van Gogh, and Tommy was funny with his they, Kelly and Janet, were telling me what to do while he was telling them what to do, and he thought the latter as perfect, the former, how dare they. Is Dean auditioning for a James Dean character? His "oh, I'm so full of angst" has long worn thin. New vocabulary word of the week, craptastic, so thank you very much, Stacy. You're welcome. Every Survivor contestant thus far in 39 seasons would have done exactly what Jamal did. Grab and act on the hanging note. That was a waste of 10 minutes. Yep. Jamal and Janet are my heroes, and Kelly too, for her willingness to speak up. Lastly, Dan's phony and awful lie, paraphrased that "my business, Hollywood, spawned the hashtag Me Too movement, etc." That's 150% false. Hollywood, the TV and movie business, hid these activities for decades, and they weren't exposed until the New York Times' Jody Cantor and Megan Toey and the Atlantic's Ronan Farrow exposed Harvey Weinstein in their reporting last autumn. And a year later, their incredible books on the subject and how things went about threats to them from those hired by Weinstein, careers dropped and wiped and threatened, and payoffs and much uncalled for self-hatred by the victims. Without those 3, hashtag Me Too wouldn't have arisen yet. I could go on for 20 more pages, so I'll shut up. Again, you guys are just fantastic, Joanne and Stacy. Thank you, Paul. Appreciated you sharing your insights there. Next up, we got a call from Rashmi.
Hello, Joanne and Stacy and all my Survivor friends. This episode and the behavior of Dan, Aaron, Missy, Lauren, and Elizabeth really disgusted me. And as Abby Maria would have said, they are dead to me. I cannot excuse Tommy, Elaine, and Dean for keeping quiet. Maybe they were not shown to us as saying anything or what happened, or they have been given a good edit because one of them is a winner and therefore cannot be shown in a negative light. In my book, keeping quiet is condoning bad behavior. And I wouldn't have expected this from Tommy. He's a teacher. Kelly, Molly, Missy, Nora, Elizabeth, and even Lauren at some time in their confessionals have said they're comfortable around Dan. And basically, everyone has said it to all the other players. My jaw kind of dropped when Dan said that he worked in Hollywood as an agent or something. Working in Hollywood, and as he also mentioned that, about the Me Too movement that started from there, shouldn't he have been actually super sensitive about his behavior and how he came across to people, especially after Kelly did tell him that she did not like him touching and all that. We've all seen video evidence of Dan's inappropriate touching. I also blame production team for not protecting the girls, as they had this video evidence and they were actually filming it. The next thing that really hurt me was to see Jamal leave. He has been a huge advocate for women. He's spoken up before, and last night also he was so eloquent, and what he said was incredible. I have so much respect for him. Saying that now, I am so disappointed in Survivor, and I never expected this, and I hope we never ever get to see such behavior, especially since I read that other article that Stacey had referred to about the race issue, and then this. It's just, I don't know what's happening. On the other hand, I have now lost my USB, Kelly. I would rather see a Janet win or a Nora win or even a Karishma win rather than any of the others. That's all I have to say. I know everybody will have something to say and we're all really upset. Well, let's hope we find a ray of sunlight somewhere else. Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you, Rashmi. Appreciate that. Next up, we got a call from David.
Hey, Joanne and Stacy. It's David in Pittsburgh. Well, Joanne, welcome back. What an episode to return to. Before this season began, it seemed to be a lack of information about it. And at the time, I thought they were keeping the mechanics of the Island of the Idols under wraps. But now I'm wondering if it's because of the issue of sexual harassment. The producers knew it was going to erupt in the media, in which it has. And I think that could be why this season had not been hyped more. For me, I was enjoying the season, and then at this double episode, it just all collapsed. I know that other members of our Survivor family will add their perspective, so let me just say what bothered me about this episode the most. First, Dan, not taking responsibility. He says he's horrified. If even a hair of truth existed, which he justified, and I wonder what he's saying now that he's watching it back with his family. As for the gameplay of Missy and especially Elizabeth, I found it reprehensible. When Kelly and Janet talked to them, they knew, they were aware of Dan's inappropriate actions, even if they were joking about it. So I felt I liked Elizabeth in the beginning, but when she started lying, she lied to Janet, and then when she was called out, she finally admitted it, but she lied to Dan, and then again, she lied to him later and said, she and Missy said, they were really comfortable with him and being close. They wouldn't want to be close to anybody else in their hut. Well, they trivialize something that women are seriously confronting every day. That really bothered me. As for Aaron, well, if he isn't aware of something, then it's not important in the game, or it just didn't happen. It certainly was not harassment. He felt that Janet was just a victim who her game plan didn't materialize. And Aaron would know. I mean, after all, his mother is a woman. So much for woke Aaron. So what does that leave me to root for? Karishma, Nora, Dean? Yeah, right. And Dean would have been voted out if it weren't for Kelly. He backstabs her the following week. All he had to do was at least give her a heads up. That was the only courtesy that he could have given her. And then we're down to Elaine, who seems to have disappeared. And Janet, who I admired for her moral stance. I was disappointed at the betrayal of her by the others. I just don't believe she has a chance to win. The only saving grace of this season is that the original Lyra will eventually have to turn on each other, and only one of them can win. Can we fast forward to season 40 now? Bye.
Yeah, it's very tempting.
There was one thing that I thought about too once this happened was, do you think that's why they released the article about season 40 just before this went down, before this episode? That when that came out, when they were like, season 40, and talks about, the different people going to be on, and just gave information about season 40, a press release before this episode aired.
Was there an actual press release, or are you talking about
there
Inside
was.
Survivor? Oh, okay.
No.
You're saying it might be further, another data point in support of what David's saying, that they're trying to soften the blow?
Yes, that they were, and distract us.
I don't know for sure, but
or
certainly
get ahead of it somehow.
Hindsight, like David said there, now we can see the reason why they soft-pedaled this season so much. There was something really painful on our way. Thanks, David. Next up, we got an email from Michelle in Australia.
Hi, everyone. The one word that comes to mind after watching that episode is yikes. I'm sure there will be a lot of comments on the Dan situation, so I think I'll keep that I will sidestep that kettle of fish and talk about something else, like who I should choose as my new USB. I'm leaning towards Tommy. He seems to get on well with everyone, and it's not too threatening, and I don't think he was tarnished by the Dan fiasco.
Actually, he was. But
he was some, yeah.
Anyway, keep going.
Aaron and Missy are obvious threats, and I'm sure the others can see this. Janet is a massive social threat, and while I would love it if she made it to the end, it seems unlikely. Elaine is also a social threat, but seems to have blended into the background a bit. She might just be able to lie below everyone's radar for a while. Contrary to a lot of people, I love the Island of the Idol segments. I also love Rob and Sandra's commentary at Tribal. There was this phenomenon on Australian TV recently called Gogglebox. It was a show in which you watched people watch TV. It's bizarrely entertaining and must be why I like the Rob and Sandra version so much.
Well, I remember they did that here in the U.S. a couple seasons back in the summer.
Okay. It will be interesting to see the USB breakdown after the last episode. I wonder if anyone will stick with Dan. Cheers. All right. Thanks, Michelle. Up next, we have a call from KimJ.
Hey, Joanne and Stacy. This is KimJ from Nashville. Like a lot of people, I was unsettled with this episode, but I wanted to talk through some of the strategy first before talking about some of the Me Too implications. So the Kelly, Janet, Tommy conversation in this episode was really pivotal because it set forth a lot of chain reactions that later happened, and it reminded me of Tasha, Sarah, and Cass and Cagayan, and that the conversations were not handled correctly, and that in this case, Tommy did not feel like he was being included in the conversation and felt like he was being told what to do. And that led him to target Kelly instead of work with Kelly. And I never understood where Kelly was coming from in talking about that 9-person alliance and how they would be on the bottom. And it just felt to me like Tommy, Lauren, Kelly, Janet, and Dan were going to be 5 people in a 9-person alliance with old Lyro. And I didn't see how that put them in any different position if they had gone with old Vokai, with Jamal and Dean and Karishma being on the bottom. They'd still be on the top, and with Dan being expendable, that put them in a really great position to be in Final Four. So I didn't think they handled that very well. And when Missy finds out she's being targeted, I think in her mind that conversation that they had on the beach was not seen as genuine anymore. It was seen more so as gameplay. And not that I don't think that there was gameplay involved on Missy's part as well when they had that conversation, but as we've seen in this season with Vince when he received votes and Jamal when he was left out of a vote, that even though you can come in as super fans and that you know that you're not supposed to get upset when you're left out of votes and when you're targeted, but it's a very hard thing to do. Dan again was very hurt when he found out Janet is targeting him, and it's very hard to be able to turn that off. And it's very easy for us to sit and watch from TV with more information than what the castaways have and expect them to act differently. And I just don't think that it's really fair for us to expect them to always be able to do that. I'm not giving them a pass, but I do think that that's part of the issue. And of course, the Dan vote doesn't originate from Janet. It doesn't originate from Kelly. What we're shown in the edit is that it originates from Jamal and Nora. And we're not really clear on who they're directing it from, but it's just so unfortunate that they couldn't just all kind of agree on a clean Dan vote here. You can't really blame Missy and Elizabeth for not believing Janet when she tried to direct that vote to Dan, because once you know you're targeted, it changes the way you're viewing the game. And finally, I just felt really bad for Jamal here because that was the worst twist ever, and he just got totally screwed. I hope the season can come back from this, and I will continue to watch.
Thanks, KimJ. I hope it can come back from this too.
That's a good point, because Jamal and Nora were not after Dan because of anything that happened with the girls. That was Dan not wanting to work with Jamal. At the merge feast, Dan told Janet that he didn't want to work with Jamal.
Right.
And of course, she told Jamal that was enough for Jamal. That's why he and Nora set their target. Well, he did, and he brought Nora in. So that wasn't why they were going after Dan. It had nothing to do with the girls.
At that point, yeah.
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 That was just Janet's dilemma, I guess.
Yep. Next up, we got a call from Slappy.
Hello, Joanne and Stacy. This is Slappy McGee. Welcome back, Joanne. I hope you had a good trip and all that. Glad to have you back. So yeah, this was a tough episode. Mainly just made me sad for Survivor in a way because I don't think they handled it very well. And I'll tell you why later. But ultimately, I was also very just disappointed in Elizabeth and Missy. They handled things horribly, really abused the system and the system that we have of that Janet was taking of, of standing up and defending those who sometimes can't can't or won't defend themselves or who need help. And then Elizabeth and Missy really using that to their own advantage. This is the problem with our Me Too movement, too, is that people lie and cheat and use it to their own advantage. And then the people who really get hurt are the ones who stand up, like Janet and Kelly. And I really felt bad for those two ladies. And I felt really angry, in a way, at Elizabeth and Missy using it to their own advantage. Even in a gameplay, I think it's just shameful. It's absolutely shameful, and the producers of Survivor shouldn't allow it. They have other rules, about physically assaulting other people, and they have rules about stealing, and they don't have rules about using that kind of manipulation. I think that's totally out of bounds, and I think that the producers should have stepped in and said, hey, we don't have a written rule about this, but let's bring this out, and you just can't. Let's bring it all out. You just can't let it happen. So I think it was terribly handled by Survivor itself, and a shame on Missy and Elizabeth for doing that for their own personal gain, for using that movement and manipulating poor Janet. And I really felt bad for Janet, and then Kelly, she caused her own demise but the idol thing, but the way she was made to feel was not awesome. And then, I don't feel bad for Dan. I don't think that he, watching these episodes, I don't think he really knows what he's doing. There are handsy people. I know handsy people. And even though I've given Dan a hard time calling in, watching it today, I don't think he knows it. It doesn't make it right at all. He went to ask for validation, and he got it from both Missy and Elizabeth, who knew that they were lying. And they used that against Dan to give him further validation. And people like that need to be told and need to say what they're doing is wrong. And here they are. People who had the power to own up to it did not. And that was horrible. It was horrible of both Missy and Elizabeth. I feel bad because Elizabeth is my USB, and I used to like her a whole lot, and now all of a sudden, don't like her at all. I don't like the way she handled it. I hate the way this has been incorporated into the gameplay. And again, I think Survivor should not allow that to have happened. It's awful. And I think Janet's in a terrible position. Now, I got a lot of other views on the gameplay and stuff like that, but I kind of just don't feel like talking about it because it's just, watching this episode just made me feel rotten. Felt bad for Kelly and Janet. I was really proud of Jamal. Really, really proud of Jamal for standing up and saying those things so eloquently. I felt bad that he went out. And that was a gameplay thing more than anything, but I felt bad. I felt bad that he left because he was so eloquent. And Aaron, Aaron was not a nice guy. I think he was just ignorant. What he was saying was ignorant, and kind of got called out for that. And he still didn't know how ignorant he was. The things he was saying, he thinks he knows what he's talking about. He doesn't, obviously. And I think Jamal called him out on that as well. He should have. Got me all kind of fired up, and I just felt mad and sad about it. Mad at Survivor for not handling it well. Mad at Missy and Elizabeth for terrible, shameful behavior. Felt terrible for Kelly. Felt bad for Jamal. Felt horrible for Janet. Sorry for the depressing phone call, but you guys are awesome. And hopefully it'll get better. I might switch my USB from Elizabeth. I don't know. I just don't see myself rooting for her. So I might do that regardless. All right. You guys take care. Hopefully it gets better next time. Bye. Slappy out.
Thanks, Slappy. Next up, we got an email from Ed in Milwaukee. Before I get to the meat of this week's episode, I have 2 comments. First, Kelly was an idiot for not playing one of her idols. I'm of the belief that it's better to play an idol when it's not needed rather than to play an idol when it is needed, rather than not play an idol when it is needed. I also believe that when one has 2 idols, you should play one of them as soon as possible. Playing an idol tonight guarantees that you'll still be in the game tomorrow. I believe that Janet did the right thing by playing her idol, even though in the end she was safe. 2, Jamal got screwed by Island of the Idols. He was in a no-win situation, nothing to gain and everything to lose. Now to the main topic. Words do not communicate how upsetting this week's episode was. Inappropriate male behavior and the Me Too movement is not a game. It's a serious issue. I applaud Janet for the stance she took, and it hurts me greatly of how she was treated by the rest of the cast and how it changed her position in the game. Jeff Probst said in an online article that Janet was a self-appointed mother figure, but I feel this is unfair. Janet is an older woman who, in real life, has worked her way up to a supervisory position in a male-dominated profession. As such, she considers it her responsibility to support women, especially younger women, when they come to her with complaints about unacceptable male behavior. Also note that Janet's presence in the game was a major factor in Kelly's decision to continue in the game after reporting her issues to production. What if the opposite had happened? In this case, what if Elizabeth had reported to Janet a serious accusation about inappropriate behavior by Dan and Janet had ignored her? What would we be saying today? Would we be saying that Janet is an inconsiderate villain? It is a good thing that Janet is who she is. It is true that Survivor has no written rules regarding gameplay, but sometimes human decency and morals must take over. This is a game, but it's played by real people with real issues that are far bigger than the game. The producers stepped outside of the game to speak both individually and as a group to all the castaways. It is not known what was said in the dialogue between production and the cast, but it did establish the fact that Dan's behavior was a serious issue. Missy and Elizabeth crossed the line. It's morally unacceptable for Missy and Elizabeth to try and manipulate this as a part of the gameplay. Survivor is my all-time favorite TV show. I've seen every episode of Survivor except one since season 1, and I haven't missed a Survivor Fans podcast since Gabon. After viewing this week's episode, I was so upset that I gave thought to saying goodbye to Survivor, but last night I saw online apologies by Missy and Elizabeth that seemed sincere. I can forgive them, but I'll be very disappointed if either of them wins the game. I am a Janet fan, not only because of her actions in this episode, but also because she is an older woman with good physical skills and is not a mom on vacation. Unfortunately, it is highly unlikely that Janet will win the game, but I hope that she gets the SIA money. Thanks, Ed. Next up, we got a call from Jeremiah.
Hello, Joanne and Stacy. Hello, Survivor fans. It's Jeremiah here. Man, Joanne, what an episode for you to return on, right? I'm sure you guys are going to get lots of feedback this week, but here's my 2 cents. This is a very heavily edited show, as we all know. So there's a lot of facts that we don't quite know just yet. But what we do know for sure is that Kelly went to Dan early on and said, hey, stop touching me. And yet, he continued to keep touching her. And obviously, he was touching lots of people, obviously. And that, of course, is the issue. Dan is not the victim, it's Kelly. And it's just disgusting to think that this man, at his age, who should know better, was continuing to do these things. And like you said, Stacy, he still didn't quite get it with his apology where he kept using the word if. That obviously didn't look good. And then the fact that he seemed very smug and happy when Kelly got voted in. I didn't like that neither. Now, hopefully he has learned from this experience, but man, you think by now he would have already known better. As far as the Missy and Elizabeth thing's concerned about using this to their advantage, I'll take my full judgment after I hear their side of the story, but it definitely doesn't look good, guys. I know people get caught up in the game and they're not thinking about their actions, but they really need to, and hopefully they've learned from this. And that's one of the things I want for us to really ponder on is that Survivor, even when it's ugly, can be very important for us. I mean, this is a life lessons. This is what we sometimes come across in real life. And I think that's what we have to really take away from this is another season, just like Thailand, where we learn from this. And it's important for us to do that. And that's what's great about Survivor is that good or bad, we can learn from it. And I will say, I did feel terrible, by the way, for Janet. Now, let's talk about the rest of the game. Oh my gosh, Kelly went out with 2 idols in her pocket. I can't believe it. Oh, what a painful episode for her, right? And for us playing JSFL, I don't know what we're going to do because I don't know about you guys, but that's who I was going to probably pick for my replacement USB. I have no idea who to pick now. I guess if you think about it, it's probably a player who escaped this episode without looking too poorly. What do you guys think? Who is that person? Is it Elaine? I don't know. Hopefully the other listeners have an idea. And the other thing too, by the way, Island of Idols, it's dead to me. Oh my gosh, that whole thing this week was ridiculous. Apparently they have definitely run out of ideas. I'm surprised Jamal didn't stab Boston Rob with that pencil. Ugh, that was ridiculous. All right, well anyway, that's it for me. Like I said, everyone, hopefully we can learn from this. I hope that everyone who was involved is doing okay now. And let's just see how the rest of the season plays out. Until next time, this is Jeremiah from Southern California.
Thanks, Jeremiah. Yeah, I was checking in with the Survivor subreddit, and they were quick to point out exceptions to the Rob's Island of the Idols speech there. They showed someone had a picture of JT when he was writing his letter. Remember that? And so, yeah, you definitely seen writing utensils in Survivor before. And then there was another one where, I forget who it was walking up on an advantage that was hanging from a tree. Basically, everything Rob said was 100% wrong. It had been done before, and it was okay. It wasn't too good to be true, although yielding bad results for JT for sure. Thanks again, Jeremiah. Next up, we got a call from Jody.
Hey, Survivor family, Jody here. Like many other fans, I've found this week's events pretty difficult to digest, and I feel like a line has been crossed with regard to what is good gameplay and what is just indecent and unacceptable in any arena. Oh, so Missy and Elizabeth overplaying their feelings with regard to how uncomfortable they were and playing that up. That's just not okay. And Dan ignoring requests to not make physical contact with other people. That's not okay. Acting dumb like he didn't know. That's not okay. I can't decide whether huge steps backwards or forwards are coming out of this. I seriously hope that Jamal's words are really heard by men and women everywhere, and this could be a great point of growth. I mean, Jamal and Janet just emerged as the real MVPs for me this double episode. It made me think back to Sue Hawk and Richard Hatch, and Sue's quit over what happened with Richard Hatch. Even though she quit the game anyway after that, I just and in that instance he was voted out. I don't know what I'm trying to say with relation to that, but it just the vibe and because Kelly was quietly just trying to get on with her game. In real life things happen and you have to put stuff aside just to get ahead in life, and this is why, is because if you don't have this outlandish reaction, then people don't believe you, or if you have the outlandish reaction, you're an overly sensitive woman who's reacting to really nothing. I mean, sorry. Yeah, and just to hear Dan's super gross comments as she exited the game, so cringeworthy. Anyway, so Kelly was my 24-point USB. She's out of the game. I've picked up Janet as my new USB because every other player in the game right now is just gross and unpalatable. They either said gross stuff or sat there and didn't say anything, and the only one who stood up for Kelly and Janet, he's gone too. So I kind of really don't even want to participate in any of this going forward, but I'm not going to be able to stop watching. But what I did love was Probst refusing to let the subject go. Dan, just because you're done talking does not mean everyone else is finished talking to their satisfaction. And do you see, Dan, how it feels when what you don't like is happening and you can't make it stop, even though you say something? All the online apologies and stuff just left me feeling hollow and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, gross. Don't touch people. It's not, when people say don't touch me, it's just not okay. And how Dan at the tribal council tried to say, oh yeah, we're in cramped quarters and I have to touch people almost on their boobs to get by. Dan, really, Dan? Okay, that's where I am. Sorry, but okay, bye.
All right, thanks, Jody. Next up, we got an email from Jack in California.
I know there will probably be a lot of feedback about the whole Dan situation, so I won't be saying much on that. But wow, it was definitely a newsworthy event to bring up. But on Survivor, that is not something we have seen before. I'm glad to see how everyone had their own one-on-one time with the producers, and I think the point definitely hit home. I do think some of the women on the tribe were more bothered on this than others, but it must have been really uncomfortable to sit through, and I want to say I feel bad by the hatred that Dan received. But at the same time, I think he had this coming. For something completely different, I initially had Kelly as a vote out, but changed it last minute, so still no vote out for me. Let's see if I get lucky with this next week's double vote out. All right, Jack, good luck with that. Up next, we have a call from LeAnn.
Hi, guys. It's LeAnn from California. I know a lot of listeners will have something to say this week, so I'll try to keep it short. First off, I'll say that I haven't been submitting feedback the last couple of weeks because I've been really turned off by Survivor's hijacking of the Me Too movement just to get ratings, it seems. My beloved TV show was really leaving a bad taste in my mouth, and I just didn't want to talk about it. Then this week's episode really cemented my feelings that the producers are manipulating the game to get ratings. They could have respected Kelly's decision to not get production involved in the Dan situation, but instead they blew it all up just to get us all buzzing about Survivor again. I've come to the conclusion that Although Missy and Elizabeth were definitely wrong in their manipulation, I think editing made it seem a lot worse than it really was. With that said, Missy is my USB, and I'm going to stick with her. She's obviously a very smart person, and I hope she can figure her way out of this mess and have her dignity intact somehow. As for Janet, I am so rooting for her more than ever. She was really taken advantage of in a horrendous way. And one last observation. In Kelly's Ponderosa video, she was all smiles and laughing after getting voted off, and her only focus was getting a really big cheeseburger. If the Dan issue had really been the big deal for her game that the edit showed, she would not have been in such a good mood. Just saying. So that's it for me for now. I surely hope the game gets back on track next week. Bye.
Thanks, LeAnn. Next up, we got a call from Mary.
Hey, it's Mary from Michigan. I wasn't even sure I wanted to call in this week, but I'm going to give it a try. It's super fresh and raw to me, so I'm not going to go too much into the issues, but instead I'm going to try to focus right on the game stuff. I feel like no matter what, we have to remember that we're seeing an edited product. Clearly, we're being told and shown that Dan is a creep. We've seen this since episode 1. Honestly, I don't think he was maliciously targeting anyone, and I think in his mind, he wasn't assaulting, harassing anyone. But because he's so not self-aware that he has no idea he's being inappropriate. This is probably how he's lived all his life. I've encountered plenty of men and boys that act like him in my lifetime. I can't really say what I would do in the situation, so I'm not going to go any further. So the game, Kelly made a mistake. She made the mistake in blindsiding Jack and counting on Dean and Nora. That's clear. Janet didn't believe Nora. And when I saw that, when I showed us Janet believing Kelly, that told me that both she and Kelly were going to be in trouble. I think all of the discussion that I've heard around the episode has left out the possibility that Tommy and Lauren would have been upset with Kelly for blindsiding Jack. We weren't shown that, but I have to believe they found out from Jamal and Nora. The Merge tribe, and what I found out was that it somehow related to Jack's deceased father, which tells me that people were a lot more upset about Jack going than we were told in this episode because there was too much to fit in. Missy and Kelly have their bonding conversation 2 hours on the beach, and they're talking about Dan. And Missy left feeling great about Kelly. And Kelly left saying Missy has to go. So if you don't realize that this is the reason that Kelly went home, then you've been blinded by the non-game stuff that was focused on in this episode. Next, we see Missy being told that Kelly is targeting her, and she didn't even believe it at first. And that's when the plan was hatched that they got to get Kelly out, like anyone would do. They decided that they would let Kelly think that they were going to go after Dan. They used Dan's inappropriateness to convince her and Janet. But please don't forget that Kelly had already told us that she wouldn't vote Dan out, and it wasn't the best game move for her. My cold take is that Kelly actually used the stuff with Dan to bond with Missy first, with a plan to get her out. Then at some point, Kelly's crying with the producers, and I don't know what led to this. I don't think they showed us this clearly. We don't know if we saw it in order. Why she finally had enough of Dan, I don't know. I don't know if something else happened or she was just so emotional, but then she told him she was okay with it, and I can't suppose to know why or what she was feeling, and I know this is a very dangerous area, so I'm just not going to go into it. I'm just going to say that it happened. So Kelly's voted out because of what she did to Jack and because she targeted Missy. She was voted out not because of Dan's actions. It was used, but it wasn't the reason she went home. I believe if production had removed him from the game, and for the record, I really think they should have, for everyone's sake, including his own, but if they had removed him, I still think Kelly would have been the next vote out. Now, I'm not going to say anything about what Elizabeth and Missy did. I just don't think anyone should be crucified on social media, and that's what I've seen in the last couple of days. We weren't there, and we're watching an edited show, and I just ask that everyone remember that. As for JSFL, I got my first vote out point for Kelly, but I had Dean as my second vote out point, so I lost that. Got all my safe points, but I lost my USB Jack last week. Thanks, Joanne and Stacey, as always. It could not have been fun to recap this episode, and I thank you for doing it. Let's hope that we talk next week, and things are a lot more fun. Okay, take care, everyone.
Thank you, Mary. I've been waiting for someone to point that out, fully, that Dan was not targeted for his abuse issue, and Kelly was not targeted for any of that either. It was because of her targeting Missy. And tribal council just turned into something totally different. And I believe, and this is just my opinion, I read something where the producers made CBS and MGM aware of the situation, and they're the ones that came back and said, okay, this needs to be done. And I can't help but believe that they checked with legal And that was the solution they came up with, was to speak to everyone as a group and individually and issue a warning to Dan, was probably from a legal point of view. Don't you think?
Sure. Yeah, I think legal was absolutely involved in this process. CBS has too much history with abuse of women all up and down the chain across their organization, that it wasn't brought in because of their association with Mark Burnett's company and because they partnered to put all this together. So yeah, I firmly believe legal was involved and made aware of what was going on. Okay, thanks, Mary. Next up, we got an email from Josh the Plush Moose from Massachusetts. Dear Joanne and Stacy, the 2-hour merge episode had me on an emotional roller coaster. The highs had me cheering happily, the lows left me nauseous and screaming. By the end, I was a mess and felt like I needed a shower, and maybe like I should avoid riding this ride again. Yeah, you're not alone. A lot of people felt that way. This season should be called a very special season of Survivor. We've already dealt with racism and sexism. Since this was the merge episode and Dan crowed about getting lit, I foolishly hoped this week's after-school special would deal with something simple like the perils of drinking too much. Nope, handsy Dan and #MeToo for 2 whole hours. Ugh. The whole debacle was icky. I'm upset that Liz and Missy cried wolf on a serious topic like this to further their games. I'm upset that Janet will pay for doing the right thing. I'm upset that the producers talked around the issue, put the onus for action on Kelly, and didn't step in sooner. I'm really upset that at the end of it all, Dan thinks he's the victim and did no wrong. Given the last few days of podcast web and Twitter outrage and apologies, I'm not alone. I have a feeling that this will be a focus of the reunion show. Jeff and the editors are probably busy at work assembling an evidence reel like they did once before for a different inappropriate and clueless player also named Dan. Okay, ran over. Time for my other observations. Playing an underground game with Nora is like digging a tunnel and not using shoring members. Eventually it's all going to crash down on your head. On Survivor, we're used to chickens and goats. Dan is a different animal, that annoying dog that won't leave your leg alone. My back hurt from just watching the first immunity challenge. Funny how everyone ran to check on Jamal when he fell, led by Karishma. Dan has rubbed people the wrong way, literally. Jamal on Island of the Idols reminded me of the movie War Games. The only way to win is not to play. Yeah, really. The island seemed to be dripping hidden idols. Too bad they all got misplayed. I think of the second challenge as the old-time ship's figurehead challenge. Kelly joined James from China in the double-safe dead Dodo Dum-Tum Club. Jamal left without a word. He probably ran out of them from all of his speechifying. Next time, 2 vote outs. I'm hoping one will be Handsy Dan, but it'll probably be Janet. Anyway, that's it for me for now. Thanks, Joanne and Stacy, for all you do. Can't wait to hear what the other fans have to say. Thank you, Josh. Next up, we got a call from Pete.
Hey, Joanne and Stacy. This is Pete from Boston calling here. Wow. I'm glad we got 2 hours. I'll admit, I was a little disappointed it was focused too much on the Dan situation, with Janet and then with the other girls. I was disappointed that we had to see that, even at Tribal Council. But I was glad it was addressed, and I hope it's resolved. But I guess it's something that's going on in our society, even to this day. But that aside, guys, what in the world, Kelly? A lot of people thought she was going to win. And what does she do, guys? She joins James Clement, voted out with not 1, but 2 idols in her pocket. Are you kidding me? She should have tried to play 1. She obviously had no read on the situation at all. And I guess I got to give credit to Lauren and Tommy. They played her really good, it seemed, for her not to play the idol. And the way the season's gone, she's with Chelsea and Vince, too. And Jamal, man, you talk about bad misfortune. He finds a note, gets to go to Island of Idols, thinking he could get an advantage to change the game, and instead he pays the price. He loses his vote and ends up doing a fake legacy advantage for Dean. And for Dean to be skeptical, I don't know that he did it that well, although the other tribe seems to think it's legit, but who knows? up, and Jamal was sent back, and I was glad Janet found the idol. She didn't need to play it, but of course she did. She got burnt for it. And I actually was hoping it was Karishma going, but it was Jamal, and I'm satisfied with that. So Volkai loses 2 members now, and Lyra actually has, I think, the advantage. Those challenges were grueling. I've never seen the first one. The second one, I think, was over the water, was first done in Worlds Apart with Mike. I think either Mike won that as Sierra Dawn Thomas or Carolyn. I can't remember which one, but that was great. Let's see if there's a shake-up or if the majority gets rid of Karishma or Janet now. We'll see what happens, guys. Take care. Woo!
Thanks, Pete. Yeah, I remember that challenge from One World because Kat was begging Kim to let her win, where they had to lean out over the water and Probe slowly cranks them out further. You remember Kat begging her to let her win?
Yes.
But she didn't. All right, thanks, Pete. Next up, we got an email from Mike in Omaha. Survivor fans and friends, I enjoyed hearing your return to the podcast, Joanne. I was gone on vacation and had a lot to unpack catching up on some back episodes of Survivor. I got a bit of a tan going, but it'll likely fade too quickly for my taste. I was spoiled that Jack left last week because I needed to do my JSFL picks and saw that he was gone. What surprised me even more was Jason leaving before that. At first, I underestimated Kelly, thinking she was going to be worthless. Then I overestimated her, thinking she was going to last very far into the game. I think there can be no doubt that had she not made such a big move to get rid of Jack, she'd still likely be around. I couldn't make any quippy comments about Dan because it's not even remotely funny. Anyone should know what is and isn't appropriate touching, especially once things have been said to you, brought to your attention repeatedly. That's really all I got to say on the issue. There certainly is more to say, a lot more, but I'm choosing to focus on the gameplay in my feedback. I'm well aware that this season showed us how the game of Survivor can intersect with other outside issues in a huge way. I will say that I sincerely believe that Janet can recover from her vulnerable spot. I just feel it in my gut. I would consider moving my USB to her, possibly Tommy, Elaine, or with an outside chance of putting it on Aaron. However, my USB is Lauren, and I just can't seem to say no to the possible 24-point bonus.
Understand that.
I'm thrilled to be sharing the lead in JSFL once more, and while I don't think Lauren has the best chance of winning, there isn't enough shown to make me want to ditch her and go down to a 10-point USB. As for who will go next, I'm really not sure. This season's very tricky for that. Aaron, Dan, Missy, and for some reason Elizabeth and all seem like possible targets to me. I can't even fully explain why, but my vote out will be one of those four. I disagree with Stacy a bit in that I think quite a few people are aware of how hard Missy's playing and that if she wants to make it to the very end, she'll need an immunity run. I will also add I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility for her. I'm not getting a winner's edit from Missy, but it's possible. I believe there's little to no shot of Dean, Karishma, and Nura winning the game, so if there's someone's choice, I'd encourage them to switch to another player. Hope everyone's still loving this season and look forward to next week. Stacy and Joanne, thank you so much for your podcast and all that you will bring to us. All right, thank you, Mike. Next up, we got a call from Kay.
Hi, Joanne and Stacy. It's Kay from Canada. I'm going to make it really short. I just wondered if you heard Aaron speaking to Missy on the way out looking for an idol with the shovel. Aaron said to Missy something like, he said that you can find them in the crevices. Who is Aaron referring to? Who is the he that's telling him where the idols are hidden? I love your podcast. Thank you for all the work that you do, and keep it going. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, Kay. We're not sure. Let's qualify it first. We don't know at all.
There's no
but
way
the
to
closest thing we could come up with was that it was likely Dean telling Aaron because Kelly
had told him.
Had shared that with him because we saw her find one in a crevice. And so we're thinking that's what it was, but there's no connection. There's nothing in an extra video we could find to verify that. That was just the best we could come up with.
We did observe that as well. I can't remember if we brought it up on the recap or not. But,
I don't either. Yeah.
But we did. We talked about it.
That's our best guess, Kay.
Yeah, that was our best guess.
Thank you. Next up, we got an email from Parker in Indiana. Hey, I decided to email in my feedback this week due to the sensitive issues in this episode. I feel like my usual silly, all over the place feedback will not work for this week, if that makes sense. I don't know what to say, mainly because others have talked about this episode in a much more intelligent way and handled it perfectly. So what I'll say is this. This episode was not fun. It left me feeling very uncomfortable. My main takeaway is, although Dan was way too touchy and not socially aware enough to realize it was making Kelly feel violated, he's not the villain here. Now, he's not the victim either, but the true villains are Elizabeth and Missy for using how Kelly felt about this to their advantage in the game. This was an issue that transcended the game, and what those two did was not okay. Now, those two and Aaron have apologized for their actions in this week's episode on social media, and it seems honest, and rest assured the castaways have worked through all this in the months since they've played, and it was most definitely more painful for all of them to watch this than for us. Janet is amazing. I love Jamal and Kelly. So sad to see them go. Hopefully next week we can turn on the TV and watch the best game ever invented, which is, of course, Survivor. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks, Parker. Next up, we got a call from Noelle.
Hi everyone, it's Noelle calling from Albuquerque. Imogen's not going to be on today. I wish I had seen the content warning so that I could have prevented her from watching that episode. It was really hard to watch. It was devastating to see Kelly get voted out and then Dan getting to stay again. And it was devastating to see Jamal be the only man standing up for her, and then he gets voted out. I don't know if I want her to continue watching the show. I'm not sure if I'm going to continue watching the show, but what I've always liked about Survivor is that it's such a great allegory for what it's like to be in a corporate workplace. So it was true to form this past Wednesday. I think that production has done a terrible job of handling the situation. Dan's warning was issued in episode 1 when Kelly asked him to stop touching her. And in episode 2, he is embracing her and kissing her, and that is when he should have been ejected from the show. The fact that he is still on the show while Kelly is not is sickeningly close to what it's like to be in the real world and have these kinds of things happen to you. And the way that the other women dealt with it by basically allowing it to continue and they're still on the show is also sickeningly close to reality for how those things play out in the workplace. So I hope that things will get fixed. I watched the Ponderosa videos and that made me feel a little bit better. And I appreciated Aaron's apology on Twitter. I thought that Missy's and Elizabeth's apologies were terrible. Looks like they were written by CBS PR staffers. Very disingenuous, a waste of time. I don't recommend them. And finally, there were some great articles about the entire issue on realityblurred.com, so I recommend those. Everybody have a good week. Bye.
Thanks, Noelle. Next up, we got a call from Paul.
Hey, Paul, Louisiana here, and when Survivor starts with a warning, you know you're going to get an episode. But to make it brief, all I can say is, I hope Dan learned something from this, but I sincerely doubt it. I mean, the man was touching Nora Tribal during the discussion. I wish I could see him acting the same way with the men, because then I could see it as something less sexist, but it is what it is. Also, I wish we knew just what the producers told Dan when they spoke to him privately. Was it clear that Dan was who this was all about, or was he just told that some players are being overly touchy? If there was any doubt that it was about him, well, I feel that the producers didn't handle it correctly. But we'll never know. At any rate, my bet is this. Nothing will change about him. Okay, that said, I have to drop Missy as my USB. Not because I don't think she can make it, but because I just don't feel good about her or Elizabeth. I'd absolutely love to pick Janet, but I'm picking her as one of the two to go next. And that's also why I won't pick Tommy. Tommy is, I feel, stress-affected, and it's really hurting his game. He's not doing nearly as well as I hoped he would, and it doesn't look like recovery is possible at this point. So, yeah, I'm picking Tommy and Janet to go next. Now for some general topics, starting with the "you found me, I'm yours" note hanging from a tree. Come on. I'm calling that out as completely unfair. And then giving him a parchment with a pencil? Again, come on. Wasn't that just another slap in Jamal's face? At the very least, they should have asked him what he wanted the paper to say, and then provide him with a real printed parchment that wouldn't raise any eyebrows. That lesson was total BS. I wonder if we'll even hear of this again, or if Dean just tosses it in the fire in front of everyone, thus making it a non-issue. And then Kelly. Oh man, 2 idols. That's my girl. Well, at the time. She was even fixing to be my replacement USB. But then, at the most undecisive point in the game, the merge vote, where new alliances are always formed and old ones usually shattered, well, Kelly decides to hang on to her idols. That's not a mistake. That's just pure lunacy. She had an idle despair. But you know what I did like? I liked how Karishma was the first, and really the only person, to run over to Jamal's aid. It wasn't until everyone else saw her with him that others thought that maybe they should possibly go see if they could help. These people are weird this season. So anyway, as I said, I'm picking Tommy and Janet to go next. And let me say that I found this double episode to be very emotionally draining to watch. And there's still fallout to wade through at this point that I'm honestly not looking forward to. Not that I want to close my eyes to it all, it's just that at this point in time, we can't change anything that we're still going to have to uncomfortably watch unfold. Yep, I'm disappointed in Missy and Elizabeth. And Dan. First and foremost, Dan, that is. So I guess that's it for me. I'll catch you all next week. Bye.
Thanks, Paul. Wow. So that's everybody. And it's a heavy topic. Still feels heavy. Like Paul was saying, there's more to come.
Yeah. I still feel a little bit overwhelmed.
There's no resolution here, but going through and getting to hear from each other and to look at different facets of it, I think can be good. You don't have to agree with everyone. This is us sharing from our different perspectives and how we perceive things. And you can hear some people say things different from what you believe, and you can hear people say things that are similar to what you believe. There's lots of different...
food for thought.
Yeah, lots of different parts of this. But like I said at the top, you got to put the work in to go through this and process it to get to the better side of a bad situation like this, if there's any hope. And yeah, it's not resolved. We're going to have to keep going through here. Understand why people have reservations and they're not sure if they want to continue. Sometimes you're at a place in your life when you don't need your escape, your recreation teaching you a life lesson or dumping something heavy on you. So I fully understand that aspect of it too. Yeah.
Well, I want to be
and focus on the game.
Yeah, I feel like I don't remember all that much of, I never do really, about what we say during the recap. You know, I don't always know exactly every single thing I said. But I do want to, because I was wishy-washy, I think, in some ways, trying to process that quickly. I do want to say that I feel Dan did do wrong, no question, in my mind. And it really doesn't, intent does not come into that. Someone told you, another human being told you not to touch. You don't do it. Enough said. And he did do it. So he was wrong in that respect. Whether it was intentional, whether he's a predator, I don't know any of that. And I can't know that. I don't know enough details, and I can't make that call or that judgment. But he was wrong in what we did actually see him do. So that's how I feel about that. And as far as Missy and Elizabeth and what they did, I think their decision to go that route was wrong and unfortunate and crossed a line. But people hating on them, I can't hate them. I can't say they're horrible people. I might think they did a horrible thing, but I don't feel like that. I can't say, because I don't know who they are outside the game, and I can't say personally that I think they're horrible people. I can't do that. That to me feels way too judgmental on my part. So I'm not willing to do that. And I'm willing to accept their apologies and move forward. However, that being said, it does affect how I feel about them in the game, and I wouldn't like to see them win at this point. Mm-hmm. If they do, they do, and it's Survivor, I'll accept it. Also, Aaron, I have a problem with Aaron also in his treatment, which I felt also was badgering of Janet. Mm-hmm. Who was obviously upset. And I think he utilized that to cover their own situation and what they had going. And I just thought that I don't like to see people adding insult to injury on someone who is truly and obviously emotionally upset about something. So that was over the top as well for me. So I'm not fond of him right now either. So
of the apologies, I would say his seemed more genuine when I was reading through the apologies of Elizabeth and Missy. When they started their apology by saying that they were working with incomplete information instead of addressing the real core issue, which was them taking advantage of this situation to better their game. And that's what made me, and I think that's probably what some of the, I'm just guessing, but I think that's what some of the other folks are reacting to also, and it makes you feel like it's maybe someone scripted it and they did a bad job for sure in that regard, because it doesn't come across as genuine. That's, if you're qualifying your apology by doing that, then you've hollowed out your apology from my perspective, and you didn't understand that. I don't know. In any case, and they did come later. They came on Thursday. It wasn't like an immediate thing. I think they were all waiting to see what was going to happen, what the blowback was going to be from this.
Oh, I thought I heard somebody say they released it right away, but I didn't see it.
Christiana said that, but it's my understanding they came out yesterday.
Okay.
And likewise with Lauren, her saying she was operating on incomplete information.
Well, and again, I don't blame them for targeting Kelly at all, because Kelly was targeting Missy. Missy was told.
In the context of threats in the game.
Right.
These are the people that I need to get out of the game. It's the how, the reason, the execution, the zealousness, the over-eager willingness to betray this kind of a scenario where you need to be believed, but to cry wolf, to dupe Janet, and then to so aggressively go at Janet, like you said, with Aaron doing that, with Elaine going in and trying to reaffirm Dan that no, it's
that
not
was almost
him, it
worse
was them.
for me. Again, insult to injury.
Yes, it had a really dirty feeling. You could see Lyro band together around this one idea and then execute to that.
And yet again, I don't want to say anyone's a horrible human being, because I don't know any more about their life than what we've been shown on this show. But I can succinctly say Dan was wrong in touching Kelly after he was asked not to.
Just one thing, every time someone mentions that keeps coming up, is he changed his behavior when Janet was there.
That
changed
bothers
his
me
behavior.
too.
This is, that's...
So you could change your behavior. You didn't choose to, which does suggest...
Unless the enforcer was there.
Yes, exactly. So I don't know. And I can't help but be somewhat... I always, in my opinion, thought of him as he appeared to be just a little bit on the sleazy side to me. But that was me personally. I felt that from the very beginning.
Well, you have these behaviors, and the only way you're going to know for sure, I guess, whether they're horrible people is how they manage themselves going forward in life, and you can't say anything more definitive. You do know that they've done this thing. It was a horrible thing. It's a really bad thing, and that's what you have to go on when you're thinking about them, and that's for sure why it's going to be unpleasant to continue to have to watch them. Because of that.
Well, I do appreciate their effort in apologizing. It does stand out that Dan bringing up the point in Tribal that he's in the industry. To me, that just highlights, Dan, that you should have known even better what not to do.
How much clearer should her initial message of "don't touch me" have been in that context?
That's why I said I would have had a second warning would have been.
I think Noelle really hit it on the head. That was his first warning when Kelly said that.
That was, and I
he
usually
shouldn't have been left in the game.
Try to give people, but I think I would have given him a second warning, but it would have been there will be consequences.
And because Janet was back, Kelly felt better about it, even though it overwhelmed her to find out that in total 5 women had been dealing with this issue, and that was really what set her off when she was talking to production.
That fact she said, is what really
wasn't just
set
her.
her off.
Yeah.
Is that other women were having to deal with it too, and maybe sometimes people feel guilty if they
that she
didn't speak
get it
up
stopped. Yeah.
to production, and then other people suffered it as well. So that too could have created, and even the fact that a lot of women who have been abused hide it. I mean, they appear, someone had said something about her not seeming very happy after being voted out and everything, and I thought, but a lot of women really do hide that. They deal with it in private.
Yep.
They pretend. You learn to hide, you learn not to tell, and all of those. That's just a part of it. So that doesn't necessarily mean
it doesn't negate anything.
No, it doesn't.
And
not
who's
at all.
not going to want to eat a hamburger after being out there that long?
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's head
move
towards
on.
wrapping this up and move
Put
into the
that
next
to bed.
stage.
There was an extra video that explains the merged tribe name. The Lumawaku was suggested by Jack before the merge, and it was relating to his dad. His father used to say that
late
to them.
dad,
Yeah, his late dad. And that it stands for love you, miss you, really want to kiss you.
Something he would say to him before he headed off on a deployment.
Right. And so that's where the tribe name came from.
Okay, before we're completely out of here, let's do a JSFL update. So 5 people got both vote outs correct. We've got 2 people tied for first place with 35 total points right now. And 31 USBs were lost for Kelly and 15 for Jamal. 82 people lost a safe point for Kelly and 51 for Jamal. 36 people gained a vote off for Kelly, 88 for Jamal.
In the side challenge scores, 33 for Cold Mike and Justin, 32 for Brandon, Jay Kindred, Randy, Rebecca, and Stacy, 31 for Carolyn, Jonathan, and Slappy, 30 for Chris, Drew, Jack, Jeremiah, and Parker, and 29 for Carl and James and Shannon.
Ooh, we've had a big shift there at the bottom. Just tagged out, huh? Okay. Again, we want to thank everyone who took the time to share their thoughts and their reactions and their insights and how they're dealing with what was in this week's double episode, and we appreciate that.
And your willingness to share on a personal level.
Yeah, some people really went out there on that, so thank you.
And if you play JSFL, don't forget to make your 4 safe picks and 2 vote-off choices again this week before the deadline of 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific time on Wednesday.
I said that exactly backwards last week. No one called me out on it.
Yeah, I think I heard that, but
Yeah.
it was already out there by the time
that was my thought
I heard
too.
it. So, oh well. This is the week after the merge, which means you now have an opportunity to select a new USB for a possible 5-point bonus if your USB 24 is no longer in the game. If your USB 24 is still in the game, but you want to choose someone else, you may do so for a possible 10-point bonus if they win. Make sure to click on Submit to record your changes. And you really should always go to the Enter Picks page after you choose your USB, just to make sure that your new USB is listed in bold letters. If it is not listed in bold letters, do it again and make sure to click on Submit. Now, there was a glitch last week where the website allowed you to change your USB, but the good news is you can still change it this week because this is the official week. So just make sure you do that before the deadline and you're good to go.
Be sure before you change away from a USB 24 that's still in the game, make sure that you got your choice clear, because if you make that choice, you can't go back to them for 24 points. If you go back to them, it'll only be for a maximum 10 points.
Ooh, that would be horrible.
So don't change until you're sure. We've had people do that before.
Yep. And it's like that's the way the website's set up. So just be aware. Though you and I don't have to worry about that because we don't have a USB.
Nope. We got to find somebody new, and that's not going to be easy given how we feel about these folks. I agree.
Okay, everybody take a deep breath, a deep cleansing, healing breath, and let's move forward to Survivor and hope that next week is less controversial.